So Trav's chicken curry, this is his dinner tonight. So after filming, it's like a very long day, and the way of dangling the carrot and getting him to do the last hour is to make him dinner. So this chicken curry that I'm making is what I guess it's techniques that I start to pull into my kitchen when the weather begins to warm up here. So like it's sort of the way I do things in summer. So I'm still going to brown it, but just not with the intensity, and then the spice carriage is a lot less, and that just equates with a lighter overall feel. So we're going to start just by browning. So I'm just going to bring the chicken over. Tack my sink. I'm going to work with a little bit of a lighter oil base, so just like vegetable oil, and the flavour is going to come from this West Australian canola oil that I use. That has quite a lot of flavour. There's not much left, so I'll add a bit of mustard oil in there as well. But I'm not doing the ghee and yogurt, which typifies so much of the way that I cook through most of the year. Now, as always, a little bit of seasoning in there. So if you wait for me, I'm just going to bring across a little bit of salt and whole spice. So naturally in Indian, sort of in Ayurveda, or the Indian way of eating, is that we moderate our spice use for for climatic effect. So salt is quite heating, so I'm going to use a few different salts to ameliorate the heating quality of salt. So a teaspoon of a fine white sea salt, a little bit of fleur de sel in the bottom of the dish, which creates this sort of effervescent poppy quality up through the meat. And then kala namak, Indian black salt, which I know is mauve, but Indian black salt or kala namak is said to have cooling qualities. It's mainly sulfur, not sodium, in terms of flavour contribution. So I'm going to put a little bit of this in. You don't need much. It's very pungent. Cinnamon quill, a couple of bay leaves, and a couple of black cardamom, just for structure. If I have a nice structural base in the chicken, I don't need to overload later with the spice. And then a little bit of hing. It's going to feed into that sulfuric black salt, and also just astringent spice. Clean my lid now. As an astringent category spice, astringent category spices like hing or asafoetida stimulate a sensation of openness in the palate. So that feeling of openness creates a more spacious, lighter spread of spice, and so the feeling of eating has more ease. Right, and this is going to go in. And this, I'm just going to brown them off. So along with that spice cache, I'm just going to add a little bit, when the time comes, to prolong the browning process, a little bit of whey, which is light and summery and sweet, and always a little bit of seasoning in there. So in Indian food, seasoning means more than salt and pepper. 1/4 teaspoon of white salt, 1/3 of a teaspoon of a hot chilli, 1/3 of a teaspoon of fenugreek powder. Those additions mine and I'll tell you, white salt is a little bit of, well, it's always a little bit of drive. I always want to carry flavour. The hot chilli is height, which equates with more spaciousness, and fenugreek powder also has a very broad, spacious bit of quality. So just creating lots and lots of room in the mouth, essentially, is what we're doing. A little noisy, but one of the keys to creating lighter spice flavour is cooking for less time. But creating lighter spice flavour isn't about creating less flavour. So that's kind of an important distinction. I want this still to be as beautiful, as satisfying as a richer dish, but just in a lighter fashion. So cooking for a little bit less time with a little bit less intensity means using cuts of meat that will translate those lighter flavours at a faster pace. So if you use chicken breast, for example, you're not going to get a very beautiful result. If you use skinless chicken with a lighter spice carriage and less cooking time, again, the interior of the chicken will be quite bland. Sorry for the noise. Using chicken Maryland means that I can cook less, spice less, and still have a beautifully complete and nourishing end result. So one thing I can do while that chicken's cooking over there, because it's very raucous today, very raucous chicken, is to spice into this katori just for efficacy. What I'm going to do once that chicken's browned is just pop it into a pressure cooker, put a second layer of spice in there, a little bit of passata and some peas, and seal it up and just pressure cook it, and that'll be done. But let's just do this spicing now, so by the time that chicken's ready, it'll be ready to go. So always I put a little bit of seasoning, no matter what. So I'm building seasoning up through the dish, but just small amounts because I've already put the bulk of it into the base. So a little bit of pink salt. So I think this is the 4th salt I've used in this dish. You know how much I love all of my salts. Okay, Nigella seed, kalonji, which is such an interesting spice. Kalonji is, it's also known, I think, as black cumin. Really is an earth spice. It's an earth spice that facilitates movement and spaciousness, which makes it very contrary because most earth spices don't do that. They don't facilitate spaciousness. They actually build in very central palate texture. But remember, we're on the hunt for movie spacious flavour. So a teaspoon of that will go in. I'm going to use coriander powder as well for some more movement and light-handedness. So 3 teaspoons. If I'm too fast, Trav, let me know. With all that movement and spaciousness, I do need to ground down a little bit with some integrity. So ground cumin powder or cumin powder will help facilitate that. So a teaspoon of the cumin powder. I want a light chilli because I already have a darker dry chilli in that whey mixture. So a teaspoon of Kashmiri chilli. I actually think that's all I'm going to use in this next phase of it. And I'll finish with a little bit of kasuri methi. Actually, let me get that right now. So just so you can just so you can see it. Kasuri methi is fenugreek leaf. And leaf spice, or forest floor spice as I like to call it, is a great facilitator of movement. So look at that colour scheme. You've got contrast and texture, a little bit of brightness and earthiness, and then these contrasting flavours which denote sort of that astringent, spacious quality in a spice blend. So it's really going to create a very light, movie end effect. So probably a tablespoon and a half. Let's make it 2 tablespoons of kasuri methi. And that's going to go into the pressure cooker when I transfer the chicken across. But let's go see the browning. You just want to cuddle them up against each other in a pan like that. So I've just turned that off, and I've actually had a little bit of a change of heart, which I want to do when I'm cooking. I'm actually not going to brown that through. It's really warm tonight, and this feels like enough. So I'm going to transfer the chicken, transfer some of the oil but not all of it. Put a little bit of this whey mixture in as the liquid base, the spice, the peas and the passata, and then pressure cook and lock it in. So it's actually quite an efficient cook. The reason for transferring a little bit of that oil is that a lot of the umami of the chicken, like that fatty sort of character, has bled into the oil. So this is the whey mixture. If in colder months, I'd really take a lot of time with that chicken and brown it down. So not all of it. Not all of it. It's about a third of a cup. I'm going to bring my spice across. I already did bring my spice across. Oh my God, these flies are outrageous. So all of that spicing just straight in. Peas, straight in. Passata, in. And that's it. I'm going to seal this and put it to pressure cook. Oh, hang on, let me do that. So going on to high until it whistles 2, 3, 4 times. Then I'll turn it down to like a medium-low heat until I can hear it putter but not release steam, and I'll leave it in this pressure cooker because I know this pressure cooker for about 35-40 minutes, and we'll come back to it when it's ready. Okay, last dish of the day. We've packed up the kitchen, but Trav's chicken curry needs to take this home. I'm going to come in, have a little look. Oh, it's melty. Oh my gosh. I'm going to scoop a bit out so you can see. Oof. And so I can try. before I send him home with it for a job well done. I get first bite, try. Oh my gosh. It's really green, like forest green, that kasuri methi, and the peas very spring-like. It's rich and light at the same time, which is what I was saying about applying all of that astringent spice and a lighter browning process and lighter fats, is that it allows this incredible richness of flavour, which that use of passata, that little quarter cup of passata at the end, helps facilitate. Carries the spice in a slightly richer format, but then the openness of the dish, the lightness of the experience is like just the ideal warm chicken summer night spice dish. Match this for me with a skin contact Sauvignon Blanc. Vas Felix does a beautiful one. And yeah, I'd be really happy to make that my dinner tonight. Although tonight this is Travis's dinner, so lucky him. That's it.